snack aisle of a grocery store, stop and look at the bags of Lay's potato chips. You know exactly what they look like. The bright yellow bag, the red logo, the promise of something salty, crispy, and cheap. You've probably eaten them your entire life. It is one of the most common, unremarkable items in the modern world. But behind that crinkly plastic hides a massive, invisible machine. That simple bag of chips is the result of agricultural empires, high-stakes corporate gambling, cutting-edge neuroscience, global supply chains, and psychological warfare designed to bypass your brain's natural ability to stop eating. What you are holding isn't just a snack, it is a perfectly optimized, multi-billion-dollar engine disguised as a potato. Before we go any further, tell me this: what is your absolute favorite flavor of Lay's? I want you to think about it. Scroll down and leave your answer in the comments right now. And if you enjoy discovering the hidden stories and unbelievable business decisions behind the ordinary food you eat every single day, hit that subscribe button. Because there are a lot more stories hiding in your kitchen than you probably realize. To understand how a fragile, greasy slice of a root vegetable conquered the globe, we have to clear up a very popular lie. If you look up the history of the potato chip, you will almost certainly find the legend of George Crumb. The story goes that in 1853, an annoyed customer at a fancy New York resort kept sending his fried potatoes back for being too thick. Annoyed, Crumb supposedly sliced the potatoes paper thin, fried them to a crisp, and buried them in salt out of spite. The customer loved them, and the potato chip was born. It is a fantastic story of accidental invention, but historians will tell you it's almost certainly a myth. Recipes for shaved fried potatoes existed decades earlier, but here is what actually matters. Regardless of who sliced the first potato, early potato chips had a crippling problem. They were a nightmare to sell. Think about the physics of a potato chip. It is incredibly fragile, covered in oil, and goes stale almost immediately when exposed to air. In the early 1900s, you couldn't put them on a truck and ship them across the country. Grocers sold them out of large tin barrels. If you got chips at the top, they were fresh. If you got them from the bottom, you got a stale, greasy handful of crumbs. Because of this, potato chips were a hyper-local business. You could only sell them as far as your delivery wagon could travel before the chips went bad. And that is exactly the chaotic world a fiercely ambitious salesman named Herman Lay walked into. The year was 1932. The United States was drowning in the Great Depression. A quarter of the country was unemployed. And yet, in the middle of this unprecedented economic collapse, Herman Lay decided it was the perfect time to sell potato chips. Herman wasn't a chef. He was a hustler. He understood a fundamental truth about business. Having a good product is only 10% of the battle. The other 90% is getting that product into the hands of the customer. He took a job as a route salesman for the Barrett Food Company in the American South. Imagine trying to sell a non-essential luxury snack out of a heavy Ford Model A during the brutal heat of a southern summer in the middle of the Depression. It sounds impossible. But Herman Lay had a system. He didn't just drop off boxes and leave. He built relationships. He organized the shelves for grocers, positioning displays near the cash register to catch the eye of a customer who suddenly had a few pennies left over. He drove hundreds of miles a day, sleeping in cheap motels, slowly building a network of loyal customers. He was so relentlessly driven that when the owner of the company died, Herman borrowed every ounce of credit he could find, bought the manufacturer, and renamed it H.W. Lay & Company. You might think this is where the money started rolling in. It doesn't. Herman now owned a regional company, but he was still trapped by the exact same problem. How do you grow a business when your product turns into stale garbage after a few days? The answer came from two massive technological innovations. The first was the continuous potato chip fryer. Before this, Chips were made in slow, inconsistent batches. The continuous fryer was a conveyor belt of boiling oil. Raw slices went in one end, and a massive, uninterrupted golden waterfall of chips rained out the other. But producing chips fast didn't matter if they still went stale. That's where the second innovation came in: waxed paper, and later, cellophane. For the first time in history, you could seal a potato chip inside a moisture-proof bag. It seems so basic to us now, but in the 1930s, this was magic. A sealed bag meant a longer shelf life. A longer shelf life meant Herman Lay could load his chips onto bigger trucks and cross state lines. By the 1950s, H.W. Lay & Company was the largest snack food business in the southeastern United States. But Herman saw a problem on the horizon. He owned the South, but out west, another empire was growing, and this empire was built on corn. In Texas, a man named C.E. Doolin was running a company that sold a highly addictive, heavily salted corn snack called Fritos. Doolin controlled the Southwest. Lay controlled the Southeast. Normally, this is where a brutal corporate war begins. They should have spent the next decade trying to destroy each other. But Herman Lay and C.E. Doolin realized something much more profitable. They weren't competitors. They were the missing halves of each other's puzzle. Lay had delivery trucks that reached markets Doolin couldn't touch, and vice versa. Plus, their products didn't cannibalize each other. A customer who wanted a thin, crispy potato chip bought Lay's. A customer who wanted a heavy crunch to dip in chili bought Fritos. If they joined forces, they would instantly possess the largest snack food distribution network on the planet. In 1961, the two companies merged to create Frito-Lay. Lay's wasn't just a Southern brand anymore. It was an American powerhouse. But here is where things get really interesting. Herman Lay was now sitting on a snack empire generating tens of millions of dollars. Most people would have retired. But Herman saw a biological reality. Think about what happens to your body when you eat a bag of heavily salted potato chips. What is the very first thing you want afterward? You want a drink. Salty snacks create thirst. Herman Lay knew that every time someone bought his chips, they were likely walking down the aisle to buy a beverage. At this time, the CEO of Pepsi-Cola, Donald Kendall, was locked in a brutal, seemingly unwinnable war against Coca-Cola. Kendall needed an edge. Coke was everywhere. In 1965, Kendall and Lay sat down and realized the ultimate synergy. If they combined Frito-Lay and Pepsi-Cola, they wouldn't just be selling snacks and soda. They would be selling the complete, enclosed loop of human snacking. You eat a chip, you get thirsty. You drink a Pepsi, the sweetness makes you crave something salty. You eat another chip. In 1965, PepsiCo was born. With the massive financial backing of a global beverage company, Lay's had the resources to scale up in a way no food manufacturer ever had. But to scale globally, they had to understand exactly why we eat. Have you ever opened a large bag of Lay's, intending to eat just a handful, and found yourself scraping the salty crumbs at the bottom 20 minutes later? You aren't weak-willed. You were defeated by millions of dollars of scientific research. In 1963, Lay's launched one of the most famous advertising slogans in history: "Betcha can't eat just one." It wasn't just a catchy slogan. It was a scientific fact. Lay's chips are engineered to be neurologically irresistible. It starts with the crunch. Food scientists know that the acoustic feedback, the loud, sharp sound a chip makes when it breaks inside your mouth, sends a signal through your trigeminal nerve directly to your brain, creating an instant sensation of pleasure and freshness. Then there is the ratio of fat to salt. When you place a Lay's chip on your tongue, the salt immediately dissolves, delivering a hyper-concentrated hit of sodium that triggers the brain's reward center. A microsecond later, the fat coats the mouth, providing a rich, calorie-dense mouthfeel. But the most devious part is a concept called vanishing caloric density. When you eat something dense, like a steak, your stomach sends a signal to your brain saying, "I am full, stop eating." But a Lay's potato chip is sliced incredibly thin and fried until almost all the moisture is removed. When it hits your mouth, it practically melts. Because it vanishes so quickly, your brain is tricked. It registers the intense pleasure, but it doesn't register the volume. Your brain never sends the signal to stop. You reach for another, and another, caught in a perfectly designed loop. To keep this massive, addictive engine running, Lay's had to build an agricultural supply chain that almost defies comprehension. Let's break down the hidden economics of that bag in your pantry. Lay's doesn't just buy normal potatoes, which hold too much water and sugar and turn black when fried. They use proprietary potatoes developed by their own scientists, bred to be round, perfectly sized, high in starch, and low in sugar. Millions of pounds of these specific potatoes are rushed to processing plants. Inside, the process is violent and fast. They are washed, peeled by rough rollers, and sent into high-speed rotary slicers that spin so fast they cut the potatoes to exactly 0.053 inches thick. A fraction too thick, and the chip is hard. A fraction too thin, and it burns. They enter the continuous fryer at 350 degrees. The water inside boils out as steam, allowing the oil to rush in. This takes exactly 3 minutes. The hot, golden chips are then scanned by optical sorting cameras. As thousands of chips fly past every second, these high-speed cameras look for dark spots or green edges. A tiny, precise puff of compressed air instantly blasts any rejected chip into the trash. The perfect chips pass through a drum, where a calibrated dusting of salt falls over them. And then comes the packaging. People always joke that Lay's is scamming them by filling half the bag with air. But it isn't air. That empty space is called slack fill. The bags are flushed with pure nitrogen gas before sealing. If filled with oxygen, the fat would oxidize, turning rancid in weeks. Nitrogen keeps the chips tasting exactly as fresh as the second they left the fryer. Plus, the inflated bag acts as an airbag, so the delicate chips aren't pulverized into expensive breadcrumbs during shipping. This system is so ruthlessly efficient that Lay's is the largest purchaser of potatoes in the world. But as Lay's grew into a global juggernaut, they ran into an incredibly difficult problem. You can't sell the exact same bag of chips to everyone on Earth. In the US, people love classic salt or barbecue, but food is deeply cultural. A flavor that causes a buying frenzy in one country will rot on shelves in another. Lay's realized that to conquer the world, they had to act like a local kitchen in every country they entered. In Thailand, they developed hot chili squid and nori seaweed. In India, they introduced magic masala, specifically tuned to palates accustomed to complex heat. In China, they introduced cooling flavors like cucumber. They changed the seasoning, the texture, and the marketing to fit the psychological profile of the local consumer. This hyper-localized strategy allowed a humble American chip to become the undisputed king of snacks globally. But we cannot tell this story without looking at the dark side. Because the phenomenal success of Lay's has come with undeniable consequences. The very things that make Lay's a masterpiece of business, the cheap price and vanishing caloric density, mean you are consuming massive amounts of empty calories, saturated fats, and sodium with zero nutritional value. As global obesity rates skyrocket, health experts point fingers at the processed food industry for engineering food that bypasses natural satiety signals. Fundamentally, despite healthier oil options today, a potato chip is still a deep-fried carbohydrate. And then there is the environmental toll. Those moisture-proof bags that built the empire are now technological marvels made of multiple micro-thin layers of specialized polymers and aluminum. But because they are mixed materials, bonded at a microscopic level, they are notoriously difficult to recycle. Billions are ripped open, emptied in 10 minutes, and tossed in the trash, destined to sit in landfills for centuries. Add to this the staggering agricultural demand, the water, fertilizer, and monoculture farming required to feed the Lay's machine, and the environmental footprint is immense. PepsiCo knows this. They are investing in sustainable farming and biodegradable packaging, but turning a ship this massive takes time. When you look at the modern landscape, Lay's is navigating a fractured world. Consumers want crazy new flavors, but also organic ingredients. They want perfectly crisp chips, but zero waste packaging. Despite the pressures, the machine keeps running. The factories keep slicing. Because at the end of the day, human nature hasn't changed. When we are stressed, bored, or having a drink with friends, we crave salt and crunch. And Lay's is perfectly positioned to answer that craving, anywhere on the planet, instantly. Think back to the Great Depression, to Herman Lay driving his hot, dusty Ford down a dirt road, hoping a grocer would buy a few wax paper bags of a greasy snack. Would he even recognize what his company has become? He started with a simple problem. How do I sell more of these before they go bad? In solving that, he accidentally built one of the most complex logistical networks in human history. So the next time you hold a bag of Lay's, feel the weight of it. It feels like nothing. It costs almost nothing. But inside that bag is a proprietary potato, grown on a massive industrial farm, harvested by machine, shipped hundreds of miles, sliced to a microscopic tolerance, fried in a continuous river of oil, scanned by lasers, blasted with perfectly calibrated sodium, flushed with nitrogen, sealed in an indestructible polymer, and delivered to your specific corner of the world, all precisely engineered to trick your stomach into believing you haven't eaten anything at all. It is a miracle of modern capitalism. And the craziest part? Now that you know the hidden history, the corporate wars, and the sheer scale of the machine behind it, I bet you still want a potato chip. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the invisible world of Lay's, take a second to hit the like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who always finishes the bag. And don't forget to let me know your favorite flavor in the comments. But if you think a bag of chips has a complicated story, you haven't seen anything yet. Our entire modern world, the meat you eat, the soda you drink, the plastics you use, and even the fuel that moves your car, is secretly controlled by one single, incredibly powerful crop. It is hiding in plain sight in almost everything you buy. Wait until you discover how deeply one ordinary yellow plant has completely hijacked the global food system. Our next documentary is about corn. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.